Thank you so much for listening to the Hotel Club podcast. We're so excited that you could be here for today's episode of HR Confidential. The conversation was amazing, so much fun. It went on for so long that we had to split this episode in two. So please enjoy the first part of HR Confidential, and the second part will be out tomorrow. Enjoy the episode. Hey, Chef, how are you doing?
Hey, good, Kristy. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. Where are you at today?
I'm home. I'm sitting in, well, we're on Zoom, so you may notice the bunk bed behind me. So
Yeah,
I'm in my daughter's room / makeshift office.
Oh, because you're like one of your girls is already in college. You have
Yeah,
one
yeah.
at home.
When she comes home, I'll get kicked out. But for
Yeah.
now, I can use this space freely.
Well, that's nice. I see your luggage is stored safely up there for your next trip.
Those are purely decorative. They're not mine.
Perfect. So I'm excited for today's show.
Me too.
Right?
Really excited.
We've been talking about this, and I think just like with checking the pulse on everyone and wanting to see how we could provide some form of maybe clarity and inspiration. We've been kind of playing with the idea of talking with someone from HR because people always want to ask questions but don't feel comfortable. And I think in our last episode, we talked about how lucky we both are because we've had great relationships with HR, but that's not always the case for everyone.
Can I just tell you, I'm so terrified right now because I'm usually sitting across the desk having to answer for crazy stuff that I've said.
Oh my God.
It's usually the chefs too.
Now you hear the voice of our next guest. We're not going to reveal the name of our lovely guest, who is very courageous and excited to be here too. But we're going to introduce our guest as an amazing professional in the industry that comes with so much experience. And we received some fantastic questions from our listeners, and we are just going to dive in. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's have some fun.
All right, Chef, you want to start?
I'm enjoying this
Yeah.
almost vengeful sense of power that I have.
Yeah. Now we're interviewing HR.
I know. Now I'm nervous.
In all truth be told, I've had very good relationships with my HR professionals in my career, so I've been very fortunate. There's been some winners, but I've been lucky. I guess the first question is, I've been at my company longer and have had more experience than the person who got promoted. It doesn't seem right, and I don't know who to talk with.
But it happens all the time. And more than the scenario, it happens all the time that there's this breakdown between like the employee and what the employee thinks is happening at work, how they perceive their performance, how they perceive their value, and what the others think. The others meaning like their managers or the people that have a say in their careers. And that breakdown in the relationship happens and it surfaces all the time. And it's really interesting because like many times we think, oh, how I handle my work relationships are completely different than how I handle my personal relationships. But they're relationships, and the same amount of work and effort that you need to put into a romantic relationship or a friendship, you have to put into your work relationship. And sometimes, when that doesn't happen, one of the two starts to sound like a needy girlfriend and starts to like get toxic get really needy, right? And needs reassurance. And that happens at work all the time. And that's probably one of the most frequent things that happens. So if you're in that position, if that was your question, really, I would encourage that, like any relationship, you be vulnerable, you reach out to your manager, reach out to the people that you work with, and ask for feedback and see how what's working, what's not working, and be open to hearing what the others are experiencing, and treat it like you do the rest of your relationships, your personal relationships, your friendships. Be vulnerable. Once you hear what their perception is, then you'll know what to do.
That's so great. That's great advice. It's so important just to be open to it's feedback, but it's almost more than that. If you can be open to that, it'll make a huge difference. You'll learn something. So many
Yeah.
people are not like really introspective and not interested in feedback for whatever reason. So you're right. And
Yeah, and
I just learned something new about my personal relationship too. I'm going to be a better husband.
exactly. And that's just happens all the time, and I think that we are so mistaken sometimes in thinking, okay, this is who I am at work and this is who I am outside of work. This is how I treat my friendships, my family, my loved ones, and this is who I am at work. But you take those habits into the workspace, right? So if you have poor communication skills in your personal life, that tends to surface at work as well. So you really have to think of it as this is who I am always. These are my skills always. And in all of my relationships, this is what I try to do to keep it healthy, keep it in a good place. And those principles always tend to apply at work as well. I think sometimes we overcomplicate it, or employees overcomplicate it. I know I have in the past, overthinking of how do I make this work? And sometimes it's just the basics, right? Communication, listening, and paying attention to the small things.
Sometimes it's probably legitimate, like somebody does get over promoted and it's a political thing, and that happens. I've seen it happen before. So
Absolutely. And I would say, like, the same advice stands, right? If you're in a relationship, for the ladies listening, if you're in a relationship with a guy and the guy is not meeting you halfway, he is ghosting you, he is not reciprocating your love and affection, you move on, right? It's the same concept at work. Not all relationships are meant to last forever. So you need to have the ability to really figure that out, right? And in asking questions, in putting yourself out there, trying to really get some feedback, you'll know. Just like you know when it's time to leave a toxic guy, you will know when it's time to leave a toxic workplace.
I love that. I love that you compared it to a relationship
Yeah.
because it's so true, right? Why would you put yourself through that? And I used to tell my team this. I think I've said this to every single team I've ever worked with. For everyone that has worked with me, this is your first introduction on the very first day to my leading style is do not get married to your schedule. Do not get married to any ideas. Do not commit yourself to something you don't know what the future holds, right? Because we have these expectations that we create in our head.
Yeah.
But sometimes people don't realize that their communication style might actually be to someone that is taking it full literal.
Yeah.
Right, for every word, and maybe your excitement got ahead of itself, but you can't get committed to that idea because it's not in writing.
Yeah.
Two, it's probably not an agreement that is signed or delivered or anything like that. But I love that you compared it to a relationship because it does matter how you treat each person.
Yeah. And when you think about a healthy relationship, you really think about, okay, I've gotten to know you. I know what to expect, right? So there is a bit of that mystique to relationships where you're like, oh, okay, I wonder what he's going to do for Valentine's. I wonder what he's going to do over the weekend, or I wonder where he's going to take me next, right? Like there's some of that.
But you don't think about that at work.
You don't think about that at work, but it happens.
Right?
When, I wonder if I'm going to get that promotion,
Right?
Like,
good comparison. So good.
It happens.
Oh, they're going to surprise me and they're going to tell me over this fantastic lunch that I'm getting a director position. I'm going to be,
Yes.
head of this, but sorry.
100%.
Too many rom-coms.
Yes. 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 And
Yeah.
the reality is that any relationship is not what you see on movies,
Yeah.
right? It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of patience. It's a lot of dedication. It's a
Yeah.
lot of discipline, and how you show up in the relationship.
Right.
And all of that is true at work as well.
So then let me ask you this question on top of the fact that someone's saying, what do I do when someone else has received that promotion and it doesn't seem right? How, or should I say, what advice would you give to someone knowing that that promotion was something that they thought was theirs? How do they then start creating a relationship with the person that was promoted to the position they wanted?
Ooh, that's a good one because there's a bit of, I don't want to say jealousy. Jealousy isn't like an ugly word.
How about salty?
Yeah, there's a little bit of saltiness there. You're like, oh, you have something that's mine,
Right.
The reality is that that person's journey is completely different, right?
Mhm.
That person is an extra in what's happening in your life, right? And allow that person to develop in your work relationship in whatever shape and form they take, or not, or you can keep your distance. But really, we allow people to take, a main character role in our careers, in our lives, or
Wait.
we don't.
Can you say that again?
Yeah.
Because that was really good.
Yeah, I think we just give too much power sometimes to people that are just meant to be extras, just people that are just meant to be in the same room, but not a leading role in our careers or in our lives. And it's okay. I'm a very big believer in what's mine is mine, and what it's meant for me will happen for me. When I see other people win, it feels good to say, oh, this is for them.
Mhm.
And when it's my time, it's going to happen and it's going to feel right. It's going to be seamless, and I'm going to be ready for that. And I like living under those principles.
Do you think that this is something, if someone's internalizing this question, because clearly this was sent and they haven't talked with anyone about it, do you feel like this is something they can bring up to HR, or is this something that they should maybe talk with a mentor about, or a team member, or somebody in their family or friend group?
Yeah, all of the above.
Okay.
Sometimes, we are not the best judge of ourselves. So you need someone else, someone with a different perspective, with a different vantage point to the same scenario, to help you put things into perspective, or help reassure you that what you're experiencing is valid.
Mhm.
That validation sometimes it's important. And to Chef's point, right? Sometimes you do work in environments where you shouldn't be there. Sometimes you do work for leaders that don't have the best interests for you, or sometimes you do have people that are not cheering you on when you are just overwhelmed with those thoughts. Sometimes you need someone else to validate those feelings. And I don't know if HR is going to validate, but your coworkers can, your friends can, your mentors can. And sometimes, HR can. Sometimes I've had to play the role in telling people, listen, this feels like the end of the rope, right? This
Yeah.
feels like we're reaching the final chapter in this career, in this stage with us. And how can I help you reach the next step in your career? And sometimes that means leaving what you have right here.
Wow, that's really
That
well said.
that was a really hard lesson for me, as both being in that situation and then learning how to appreciate the patience involved, and letting things that are right come when they're right, and not necessarily forcing it. But also as a manager, I've had other people where I've recognized that they've hit their pinnacle in that particular role, and they actually need encouragement and support to actually make the next step. And sometimes it's a horrible inconvenience. Like I've lost a great sous chef that I think Kristy might remember at Mandarin, but he was super talented. And I looked at him and I'm like, you need to go run your own kitchen. It's time.
Oh, I
And
think I remember that.
yeah,
You
and
encouraged him to go somewhere else where he's going to be able to be even more successful. I think
well,
there's so much power in that.
For sure.
yeah, you could tell he was getting a little resentful, and and I couldn't figure out why, because we had a really good relationship and he got along with everyone and he was well liked. I was kind of like, what's going on here? You need to run your own thing. You need to make your own mistakes. That's the level you need to go. There's no other way. You're not going to learn from someone else now.
Yeah.
So we we went out and got drunk. I can say this because you weren't there. So Erica,
See, it's
that
always the chefs.
and he got himself a really good position, and I offered my reference, even though we weren't allowed to give him, and my support. He's doing great, super talented. I'm really really happy and that it worked out that way. I was not happy that I lost such a strong Sue. That's kind of the way it goes.
That's what happens when they grow up and they have
Yeah.
big dreams. You got to let them go. And you pushed him out of the nest. Good job on you.
Yeah. But that really is the power of relationships,
Yeah.
right? If you really nurture it and you take care of it, that is what happens, right? Maybe you outgrow a place, but the people around you, the community that you build, the friendships that you build, the relationships, they help you accomplish still your goals, right? Even if it means we don't work under the same roof, but that really is the power of relationships. And when we invest in it in that way, that's the beauty of it. That's where it can lead. And I have firsthand like seen how influential, how important it is to have those relationships around you. There have been jobs that I wanted that I said, okay, I want that job. I'm ready for that job. I'm excited. I'm going to put it on my vision board. I'm going to speak it into existence. And I'm going to tap into this relationship because he knows what I'm like. He knows my work ethic. And even though I left him for another job,
Yeah.
I know he's going to help me reach my goals. And that's the beauty of it, right? That's the beauty of this industry also.
Such a great answer. Well, can I ask you the next question? It's a question that makes me very nervous because it's very controversial, I think, and to some degree. So it's, can I date someone I'm working with?
Oh, that's a great question.
No.
Listen,
it just is. It's a slow moving train wreck. Sometimes not slow moving, but
I
it's
don't
a
know if it's a no.
I mean, I've been guilty. Let's just
yeah.
for sure. I've been
Yeah.
guilty in my career a few
Oh.
times.
Oh man, that's such a spicy question. It can go terribly wrong. We'll start with that. It has. I can't tell you how many scenarios I've had to deal with where it's gone terribly wrong.
How about you tell us like some of the do's
Yeah.
and some of the don'ts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if it's normal to date at work, right? It happens all the time. So if you want to date someone at work, you're interested in someone, you're smitten, and you are determined to make this happen, I think setting boundaries at work is super important. This is our us time and this is my me time at work.
Yeah.
I want to confide in you. I want to tell you about my day, but the boundary is I don't want you to do anything about that. I don't want you to tell others. I want this to be like our intimate time. So boundaries keeps the relationship healthy and keeps the drama outside of work.
Love.
Once those boundaries start to, it gets really messy really fast. Yeah. And the last
oh
thing
my
you
god,
want,
I've got so many stories. Not me. I've been married for 20 something years and distant thing in the rearview mirror. But when it happened, it never went well for me.
Wait, did you meet Mary while working together?
No. So long story short, we dated on and off several times over the course of several years and finally realized that we were meant to be together and we got married. We then actually, after we were married, we worked together. We owned a restaurant together. One of the few couples that actually were successful and made it work. And we were great together by all accounts. And then after that, I obviously didn't date anyone anymore. Did have to manage quite a few people who did, and it was
Oh,
just always ugly. It always ended up in someone had to lose a job at some point. So I've been through so many of these that I'm like, I can't just keep it outside of work, keep everybody's life simple. That's my jaded, bitter experience. I think your outlook is more healthy.
it's because I'm older now. So I'm,
So good.
when I was younger, I didn't think about it that way. I actually like had a horrible personal experience when I was starting my career. I was getting to know this guy. I was in HR. I wasn't a manager, I wasn't a director. I walked into a space and he was talking about me to his coworkers, and the embarrassment that I felt in that moment, I felt so uncomfortable working with everyone that was there, right?
Yeah.
And that feeling was something I never wanted to have ever again. I was like, oh my God, I just want to die right now.
Oh no.
You learn, right, that that's the risk that you take when you date at work or when you are involved with someone at work, that sometimes it works out but most of the time it doesn't. And what do you do with all of that, right, when it doesn't? Are you mature enough to keep your emotions in check?
What do you do with all of that?
What do you do with all of that?
Let's talk about the bad things.
Oh my God. So bad.
That's a whole show and
Yeah.
it's
You opened up a nice can of worms here.
yeah, seriously. I love that you said boundaries, because boundaries is definitely a very important and healthy part of dating someone in general. When you weave in work into it, it's a recipe for disaster, a possible hot mess. Maybe 5% of people actually end up in a really beautiful relationship.
Mhm.
But let's talk about the 95%. Why don't we go there?
Oof, it gets so ugly. It gets so ugly. I've had to comfort a lot of people at work, and it's okay. Leave them alone.
Leave them alone.
Yeah. Or I've had people say, I don't feel comfortable working in my department anymore. I want to transfer. Okay, well, that's not always possible,
But
right?
HR can never tell them, but you did this to yourself.
Not in those words, but I'm like, okay,
Listen.
what did we learn? And most of the time when they're super upset, they'll say, I will never date at work again.
And you're like, yes, you will.
Yeah.
At least one more.
Yeah, people feel uncomfortable at work.
Yeah.
People start to date other people.
Yeah.
And then the jealousy that surfaces with that is really ugly.
Oh,
Yeah.
such a messy thing.
Yes.
Why would you do that?
I know.
Why?
The worst is the fights when they have spats. They've just told you how professional they were that morning, and then by 1:30 in the afternoon, they're like arguing, and you can't have it in the same department.
No.
I have nightmares. I'm breaking out into a cold sweat right now thinking about this.
Oh my God.
Having to march somebody down to HR when they were harassing their jilted lover, and it's
But see, this is the problem. The chefs always bring them to me.
Yeah.
The chefs always know, and they always dump the problem in HR.
Yeah,
I had to sit there through it. I had to sit through it. I didn't just like, it wasn't a drive-by, and I didn't just drop them off and go.
The worst part is when I've only experienced this a few times, right? Is that they don't want to be scheduled the same days that person is scheduled. I'm like, what do I do? First of all, you don't work in the same department. Am I supposed to confer with that other leader and say, like, what days are you scheduling this person? This is an unreasonable ask.
No. Well, I'm gonna one up you.
Yeah.
I had a situation where two employees were dating. The male employee was cheating on her.
What?
Yes. She finds out. We have an employee party. He walks in
Oh no.
with his new girlfriend, the person he was cheating on his girlfriend with, and they all break out into a fight at the place of work.
You got the bonus plan.
And this is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah. And I remember seeing it all happen in real time. And I was like, no, 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 no. And they all lost their jobs.
Wow.
Yeah, well, the two of them that were working at the place, yeah, they all lost their jobs. It's not worth it.
No.
It's not worth it.
Oh,
So the moral of the story is, if you know yourself and you know that you're not going to be okay with any of those uncomfortable scenarios, do not do it.
don't do it.
Don't do it.
Not good.
If you're in your like enlightened stage and you find the balance to navigate all those feelings, then go for it.
Right?
Have fun. Yeah.
I'm going to say from experience, just don't. That's personal. Like just don't. I've had good and bad experiences, but I will just say, for the most part, for anyone that's growing in their career, focus on the big things. And if you do want to date someone you work with, one of you needs to leave. That's a very sound decision, is that one person needs to be in a different place, but don't do it in the same house.
But it's so hard to follow that, and I get it. This is
Yeah.
why I empathize when employees are in that situation, because it's so nice to have like a work romance.
I mean, of course.
You're like getting ready and you're like, oh, I'm gonna
Leave
see
at
my
the same
workplace
time.
crush.
Yeah.
See me in my uniform, you know?
I'm gonna wear the best suit.
Yeah.
I think also the romantic part of it, right, is that you work so much that it's nice to have someone that understands you and gets you.
Yes.
But I'm not gonna twist your mind in that fate. Okay, like
Yeah.
just let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Be like that song. Let it go. Let it
Yeah.
go. Right, Chef? Are you a yay or a no?
I'm an absolute no. There's no way. I just thought it's going to sound really nasty, but when you hire couples too, it's not just the bickering, which happens. It's the, somebody gets sick, then their spouse or their partner is going to want to be home with them, and that's perfectly fine. Now if they're in the same department, now you've lost two. We were talking about this earlier. Every hotel is understaffed, so to be in that position and lose two, it's just a nightmare. And I wouldn't want to put myself in that position. I wouldn't want to put anyone else in that position either. And it can make other people around the happy couple, it could make them very uncomfortable too. Like they're all left out. I mean, unless they like that kind of thing. But just saying, if you're
romantic, is that what you just said?
No, if you're involved with someone, then obviously that's the exclusion of everyone else around them, unless they're a throuple. But
oh my God, you had to bring that in there.
I had to.
What kind of podcast is this?
This is the late night version podcast. We usually do this in the morning, but no. If you're involved in a relationship with someone in the same department, it can make other people in that department, I think, uncomfortable. Sometimes they may be used to it. It depends. There's a property that I work with where there's a family that runs one of the cafes, and they've been doing it forever. And that's a different story, but they're all together and they're off in their own kind of universe, and you leave them alone. But in a hotel setting or in a restaurant setting, it's somewhat difficult, and it can impact the performance of the whole team. It can impact service, and I just don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Like
Yeah.
we've all said, but let me ask you this. We've all agreed it's a no. However, if you do decide to do it, should this person or the couple take the steps to tell HR?
No, don't tell HR.
I'm like, do I want to know? Yeah, I think it depends on the relationship that you have. If your relationship is serious and you're ready to tell people that, listen, this is a real relationship. This is important to me, then yeah, absolutely do that. Like solidifying that really changes the perspective of the relationship. I would say, yeah, absolutely. But you have to be on the same page with your
Mhm.
partner about that and when you say that, because that can also go terribly wrong.
Yes, it can.
Yeah.
Yes, it can.
Yeah.
Or you just make sure you again go back to your boundaries, right? You keep your boundaries and it's nobody's business. If you
Mhm.
can keep it together, Heather. Just
Yes.
keep it together.
Yeah. And
All
just
right.
one final point for the listeners in
Yeah.
California. None of this applies to you if you're a manager. Do not date at work, managers. Chef, no dating at work.
Tell your managers and your leaders.
I don't have to be told. I'm on a short leash anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen the results of that. That's actually another level. That's next level stuff. So
Yeah.
when a manager dates, especially an hourly employee, there's some shady stuff going on there. And that's even like a bigger no.
Absolutely. I will tell you, if
There
you
is a hierarchy.
yes, you can't do that.
God, I hate to
Like
say that.
all of
It's
the
true.
scenarios and my like, well, maybe your boundaries, that only applies if it's your coworker, like your colleague in
Yeah.
the same department, in the same level. If you're a manager and you start dating one of your employees,
Oof.
that never ends well.
No.
You
No.
will lose your job
You
most
will.
of the time. Yeah.
So don't get married to your job if you're willing to. That's a bad decision.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, we can go into that even more, but let's move on to the next question.
This was getting fun.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question. I found out that I'm earning less than the men in my job, and it's making me more uncomfortable as a woman who works really hard and is dedicated. I don't know what to do.
So, unlike the other answers, I will say you take that head on. You very clearly, my advice is to very clearly go to your HR department and say, hey, I want more information on how my salary was determined. I have been made aware that my coworker who's doing the same job is earning more than me, and I would like an understanding on why that's the case. Be bold, be direct. Unfortunately, there is a pay gap issue in a lot of industries between men and women. There's a multitude of reasons why that exists.
Women earn 74 cents to the dollar versus a man.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And there's so many reasons why that ends up being the case.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to advocate for yourself. You need to be your biggest advocate, and you need to be empower yourself in asking for explanations.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean,
100%.
I feel like in the best interest of a company, you want to make sure that you're investing in your female employees and your male employees equally, right? Because at the end of the day, you're losing people and you're losing the opportunity to have a very healthy business if you're not investing extra. And it's not even extra. You're already paying someone else the same amount.
Yeah.
So I feel like finance has a responsibility to go back and be like, hey, look, we need to make these vast changes. If we want to lead and lead our competitors, we should be making these changes. We should be advocating for this. We should be the place where people want to come and work because we notice the gap. We understand it. It doesn't make sense. Yes, we were a part of it at one time, but we want to change it.
100%.
Right?
100%.
And there's no excuse for that now. I mean, it's
None.
apples to apples. If you're doing the same work, you get paid the same.
100%. I was at a company and it wasn't until after I left and I learned, you know how California now has to post the salaries of each position. So when I wasn't with the company anymore, I saw an open position for a director. I would consider all directors to be peers, right? We all do different things. We have different talents, we offer different things. However, in my position before, I was a revenue streaming department. So my departments brought in millions of dollars. The person that was my peer was in a different department. He was a director just like me. He had a maybe similar in number to the same team members, but his department wasn't a revenue producing department. And he was earning $40,000 more than I was.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, obviously, this is after I left. I couldn't do anything after that. But my God, how many years did I miss out on that?
Yeah.
And that didn't feel good.
Yeah.
That didn't feel good at all. Was he doing something better? No, it wasn't about that. The fact is that we both were directors and we were both in line with each other. We were both reporting the same person. However, I was making less than him because maybe my industry was perceived more feminine. I don't know. I don't want to put anything to it, but the spa industry, spa directors, all my spa directors out there, we have been sitting in the same executive salary range for the last 10, 15 years. They don't get raised. 3% raises are not enough when your company is making like 40% more. So all the spa directors out there that are quitting right now, that are leaving the industry, they've just had enough. They're just done.
Yeah.
They're doing so much work and it's very psychological because they're dealing with so many personas and situations. But I look at like some of these male dominated industries and they're not being compensated the way that they should be when their divisions are earning so much money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two things. There's if the situation is about value, right? And the company values this position more than that position, then you want that explanation too, because you want to be somewhere where you are valued. You want to be somewhere where you feel valued. To know that your male coworker is making significantly more, you're not going to feel valued, right? But an explanation helps you understand a little bit more, and you'll be surprised what companies say, what people say when you ask for an explanation.
Okay.
Sometimes people will be honest and they'll say, listen, this is how we measure value. And sometimes they'll give you insight on greater issues.
Yeah.
And you want to know that so that you know where to invest your time and your resources and your talent and where you don't want to do that.
I mean, in the kitchen, it's unfortunate, but it's such a male dominated industry that it's really hard to get around that. It just has to be, you got to keep up on it. You got to keep fighting, not necessarily the female. The males have to kind of send the elevator down, so to speak, to bring people back up. And that's the only way. It's the spirit of fairness. I know plenty of women chefs that can work circles around their male counterparts, yet their male counterparts are celebrated and they're paid more. I think it's getting better. The needle has moved a bit, but it still it's got a ways to go.
It needs to improve for sure. I was just speaking with a friend of mine who's in the hotel industry as well, and she's a part of the, spa director position, and she shared with me this fascinating article about how women and their worth decreases in salary when they start to have children.
Yes.
This is one of the most disappointing things I've ever read, where it says that the women that decide to have children, having children is a gift. I feel like if you start to have children, obviously you are sharing with the world an incredible gift. And because women are earning less than men, I think this is even a bigger issue because women have to pay for like the things that we're meant to put in to our lives, right? Like stockings. Who wants to wear stockings? Let's take hosiery away because that's $7 a pair every single day. Nobody wants to talk about what women ruin in clothing when it comes to their well-being as women. Every month we get a visitor that people don't want to realize we get it, right? You ruin suits, beautiful suits. I've ruined beautiful suits because of my female situation that I can't get apart. You know, I can't get away from it. It's a female thing. I have endometriosis. It's frustrating. But we don't receive extra funds to be feminine. We receive less, and we have to pay more in life to be our natural selves. This is so disappointing that the men in this industry that do have the opportunity to improve it are not improving it. And I hope that they do, because without, I'm going to say this, it's going to be ridiculous because it's true. The world can't survive without women. We need to honor them. We need to respect them. We need to take care of them. We need to make sure that they are thriving, that they can support their children, that if it's a single mom that decided that she can't get married and wants to have children, that she can do it. You know, like I put off having kids for the longest time because my career was the number one thing. I'm 40 something and I can't have kids.
I don't ask those things.
Yeah.
She doesn't look 40.
Yeah. I don't look my age. I'm good. I'm good. Asian, no raisin. But really, this is one of the things. Like companies don't pay for women to have amazing careers with them, where they support them when it comes to freezing their eggs, where they say, we appreciate what you're doing. We know you're giving off all this energy to the success of our companies. Like, let's provide you with more amazing things to make you thrive. We should be paying for your IVF if you can't have kids because you prolonged it for so long in your career, right? Like, why are we making women earn less when they actually have to pay more to survive?
And you will see that there are so many more companies that, as a part of their retention and this as a part of their compensation packages, they're starting to build in just now financial support for egg freezing, or they're focusing on pay equity, which, how do you not penalize a woman for the time that she was home because she was pregnant and she was a new mom? Right? Many people, many companies, many recruiters or decision makers, they see a gap in a resume in a woman and they will say, oh, that's like a year or two that she was out of the workforce, that she was out, she's no longer in touch, right? About what in the matters that we're leading or in the industry. And really what you're doing is you're penalizing the woman for having a child and having to be home with her newborn. So there are so many companies that are starting to develop policies and frameworks that counter that, which is great to see, but it's not happening rapidly enough.
I love that people are doing it. I do see companies doing it really well. And I can only speak of this because it's not actually in hospitality, in the world of biotech. And I can only speak to this, right? One of my girlfriends is a scientist, and her company has always been forward when it comes to innovation and how do we keep you happy and healthy as a person, and then how do we help you expand on that as a person that gets married and starts a family. So here's my question: is hospitality so far behind that we are not catching up in terms of understanding what present life looks like, right?
Yes.
Because company agreed.
That's a hard yes.
Hard yes.
Yeah.
So my girlfriend's company that I'm talking about, and she's so happy. I'm going to tell you how happy she is. Do you know how long she's worked with this company? She has gone from working with them at college. She has gotten married. She has had a baby. They help her with childcare. So when she's there, they have a full-blown, beautiful childcare facility for her to bring her daughter to, and she has a blast. They integrate all these amazing wellness opportunities where you can get a massage, you can have therapy, you can all do all these things that maybe don't have their family close by, that need somewhere for their kids to go, while hotels and all, like the whole industry is trying to make more money. You're not trying to make longer relationships with the people that are there to support you. Like, what's going on? What are we doing?
What are we doing, Chef?
Well, I think as an industry, we're failing, to be perfectly blunt, the labor model to begin with. And depending upon who you talk to and what their station is in the industry, some people will tell you it's hard getting good people and we have to pay them too much. And they want, oh my God, they want, $15 an hour, but try living on $15 an hour. Number one, you can see the results of this mindset. We're not attracting people. More people, I think, are exiting the industry than are entering. We need to focus on making these jobs good and making it so we're developing people and giving them professional skills that they can have a career with. In addition, simple kindness, like coming up with some other benefits for women that we haven't had before. There is equality, but at the same time, women are going to need certain things more than men in some areas, and the industry has to be hospitable to those that work for them.
Absolutely. I think
we haven't.
If you and I think about what's important for us now in our careers, and if we were to have to find another job, where would we start? Like, what would we be looking for? You would want a place at this stage in our career. We would want a place where we can be our authentic selves, right? Where we can be respected for the contributions that we bring, feel valued. It's acknowledged that you're a husband, that you're a father, and that you are accountable to things and people outside of your work. Your responsibilities exceed your job duties, right? Where you can say, listen, I have my daughter's so-and-so, I need to leave. Or today I'm going to work from home because I have to spend some time at home, right? Taking care of these things. The employers that have figured out a way to create that for employees are the employers that are not seeing a shortage in staff, are the employers that are retaining their people, and are the employers that are thriving. And I think hospitality has done a really poor job about offering employees quality of life. And I think that as the workforce gets younger, as the workforce changes and evolves, people are looking for quality of life more than money, more than other things. Hospitality has just lagged behind because they don't offer quality of life. Sometimes they offer great benefits, and sometimes they offer great incentives and things like that, but quality of life is not a priority. And it should be.
It should
And
be.
it can work. It can be.
It can.
You don't have to just treat people as furniture that can be moved around.
This is true. I want to talk about like the quality of life, because the work-life balance, like many years ago, not too many, like 5, 7, 8 years ago, 10 maybe, people were like, I want work-life balance. It's a myth. It's a myth. It's an idea that we tell ourselves we're going to have work-life balance. We want it. People that work for companies want it. The fact is that you can't actually have that unless you have a company that provides that for you. Now, on that side of this is not one of the questions, but I'm going to just piggyback off of this thought is,
ooh, I know we ended so abruptly on that, but listen for the next part of HR Confidential tomorrow. I hope you had such a good time, because we had a blast talking through some of these questions, and there's even more tomorrow. So thank you for listening. Chef Adam Malley is my co-host, and I'm Kristy Whitford. We're so happy to be sharing this day with you. Enjoy, be safe, be kind. And thank you for listening to the Hotel Club podcast. Cheers.